You think you know what a 300-bar air rifle can do, and then a 500-bar monster walks in and rewrites the entire rule book. Look, for the last decade, this hobby has been chasing one number, 300 bar. That was the ceiling. That was the wall nobody could punch through. Until now. In 2026, the line between a PCP air rifle and a centerfire rig got so thin, it basically disappeared. We are talking about plenums built like jet fuel tanks, spool valves lifted straight out of high-end paintball markers, and slugs heavy enough to make a 30 cal shooter blush. Here is the deal. We pulled 5 platforms out of a much longer list, the ones that actually moved the needle this year. Not incremental updates. Not marketing fluff. Real engineering shifts that change what you can do at 200 yards and beyond. One of these guns operates at a pressure that would have been considered reckless 3 years ago. Another one weighs more than some bug-out rifles, on purpose. And the one taking the crown at number 1, it did something no manufacturer has pulled off in a decade. Stick around, because by the end of this list, you are going to look at your 300 bar gun a little differently. Kicking things off with the platform that looks less like a hunting rifle and more like something that escaped a robotics lab. The Skout EVO ditches the sear, the hammer, and the heavy springs entirely. In their place sits a spool valve, the same balanced valve architecture, borrowed straight from high-end paintball markers, fired by a solenoid instead of a mechanical strike. 2 gauges ride the chassis. One reads high pressure off the main exhaust valve, the one that actually decides your velocity. The other reads low pressure off the pilot solenoid, the one deciding how fast that valve slams open. An OLED touchscreen lets you dial valve open time down to the millisecond, which is a fancy way of saying you can tune this rifle without ever touching a wrench. 3-shot modes ship standard. Match mode keeps the digital safety disengaged for rapid strings. Release mode, the benchrest favorite, fires the instant you let go of the trigger instead of when you pull it, killing any chance of you torquing the rifle off target. Hunt mode kills the audio chimes, stretches the battery, and forces a manual safety re-engagement after every shot. There is also tool-less barrel indexing. You can rotate the barrel right inside the chassis to chase the perfect harmonic node for a specific slug. No disassembly required. Here is the deal breaker though. This whole system lives and dies by a battery. Mechanical guns do not care if you forgot to charge something. The Skout does. Let that battery die mid-hunt, and you are carrying an expensive paperweight back to the truck. Riding on a 500 or 580 cc carbon bottle filled to 4,500 psi, the EVO tops out around 118 foot-pounds of energy and 30 cal. Respectable numbers, but this is a solid plinker and a legitimate digital marvel. Wait until you see what is waiting at number 1, because that rifle does not need a computer to break records. Stepping up the power now into territory built for shooters who care more about repeatability than flash. Reedy built the Mora Sniper around a 125cc plenum, paired with an externally adjustable assisted valve. Here's the mechanic's insight. Instead of relying on a basic spring to slam that valve shut, the Mora bleeds a portion of the high-pressure air itself to force the valve closed faster than any spring ever could. That faster cycle means less wasted air per shot and more consistent energy output even when your regulator pressure is sitting relatively low. Dwell time, how long that valve stays open, adjusts externally too, so you can match the air pulse to whatever pellet or slug weight you are running without cracking the action open. Feeding that valve is an 1100 cc carbon bottle. That tank turns this rifle into a marathon shooter. Fill it once and you are not chasing a compressor for a long parse stage or a full day in a deer stand. A dual regulator setup, with the second stage adjustable from 50 all the way to 200 bar, locks in velocities so tight that pro-ballistic testing clocked a standard deviation of just 0.6 feet per second on the 22 cal version. That number sits right alongside premium centerfire hand loads. Now here's the catch. Running a bullpup chassis like this puts the trigger group way out front of the action, and that extra linkage travel can leave the trigger pull feeling just a touch disconnected compared to a traditional rifle layout. Some shooters need a session or two to adjust before it feels natural. Paired with a 700mm RPB barrel from Lothar Walther, the Mora Sniper is putting sub-MOA groups on paper past 200 yards. It sounds almost clinical when it cycles a tight, controlled chuff instead of a sharp crack, like the air itself is exhaling instead of exploding. I know the traditional firearm guys watching this are already shaking their heads at a sub-MOA air rifle claim. Sound off below if you have actually stretched a PCP platform past 200 yards yourself, because that conversation needs to happen more. Now we get into the serious precision rigs, the ones built for people who do not care about carrying their rifle a mile. They care about printing one ragged hole at 100 yards. Karma threw weight savings out the window entirely. The Red Panda tips the scale at over 7,600 grams, call it 16 to 22 pounds depending on configuration, and every bit of that mass is intentional. Under the hood sits a dual-tube plenum holding 200 cc's of air, built directly into the forward rail system. That layout completely isolates the high-pressure air source from the barrel itself. So when that violent pressure drop happens mid-cycle, none of that energy transfers into barrel flex. Zero whip, zero wobble. Here's the deal breaker. This rifle does not forgive lazy tuning. Dial it in wrong, and you are nowhere near the sweet spot. For example, the 22 cal version wants 30 to 42 grain slugs, harmonizing specifically between 160 and 180 bar on the secondary regulator. Miss that window, and your groups open right up. This is not a grab-and-go gun, it is a dial-it-in or suffer gun. Twin external stainless regulators bring extreme spread down to 2 to 4 feet per second numbers that make centerfire handloaders nervous. Push it to the 35 caliber configuration, and you are launching an 81 grain slug at 941 feet per second, generating 159 foot-pounds of energy. When it fires, there is barely a kick, just a low, controlled thud, like dropping a sandbag instead of cracking a whip. That mass soaks up recoil so completely that shooters can watch their own trace through the scope and correct for wind on the very next shot. Entering the elite tier now, and this is the platform that throws out everything you thought you knew about how a PCP rifle should look. FX walked away from the standard under-barrel air tube entirely. Instead, the Doctor's Pro wraps a 307 cc reservoir concentrically around the barrel itself and over the barrel design that shrinks the whole profile down and yanks the center of mass backward, right where a precision shooter wants it. FX partnered directly with MDT, the centerfire chassis maker, to drop this air barrel assembly into the MDT ACC Elite chassis. The barricade block sits farther back than on a standard air rifle, letting the Doctor's Pro settle onto PAR's barricades, tank traps, and cattle gates exactly like a centerfire gun would. Here's the mechanic's insight. Hidden inside what looks like a standard magazine well sits a 63 cc super high power plenum regulated by an externally adjustable AMP Mark II regulator. That regulator is the difference between a rifle that just shoots slugs and one that shoots them consistently. It manages the air charge precisely enough that shot 10 lands at the same velocity as shot 1. The barrel itself uses FX's superior heavy STX system, cold hammer rifling that grips the slug tighter and seals the bore around it almost perfectly. Now, the damage to your wallet here is real. Stacking a factory-installed slug power kit on top of a full MDT chassis integration pushes this rifle well past what a standard bullpup costs, and if you ever want to swap chassis components down the line, you are buying MDT-specific parts, not generic air rifle aftermarket. Topped with a 30 MOA Picatinny rail and shipping with the slug kit pre-installed from the factory high-flow probe, Tungsten Hammer the Doctor's Pro needs 0 aftermarket parts to compete at an elite level out of the box. It handles like a centerfire rifle because, mechanically, FX built it to behave like one. This is as close to the crown as a rifle gets without actually wearing it. Closer to the crown now, and this is the rifle that did not just push the ceiling up, it tore the ceiling off entirely. For over a decade, 300 bar was the wall nobody could punch through. The Wolfiek Pandora PRS, built through a partnership between Wolfiek Group out of Spain and AEA Airguns, is the first commercial platform engineered to run natively at 500 bar. That is 7,250 psi of contained pressure. A machined 757-6T6 aluminum chassis handles that violence, with an 8-bolt barrel lockup neutralizing the harmonic chaos that kind of pressure normally creates. Dual front tubes feed a radial, 360-degree transfer port, keeping airflow symmetrical and uninterrupted behind every projectile. Here's the mechanic's insight. Pandora ships with a dual-match valve system swap between a low-resistance PRS valve built for blistering follow-up shots, or a bench valve tuned for surgical airflow control on paper at 100 yards. Either way, the modular plenum scales up to 210 cc's, and the external AR-15 style regulator drops all the way down to 100 bar for sub-12 foot-pounds Diablo work. One rifle, 2 completely different jobs. Now for the numbers that matter. In .35 caliber, Pandora generates 401 foot-pounds of energy. Switch to the new 7mm Wolfiek developed cartridge, and you are still pushing 275 foot-pounds with a flatter trajectory than anything in .30 cal could manage. Compare that to the Karma Red Panda's 159 foot-pound ceiling, or the Doctor's Pro's 73 foot-pounds tuned for paper-punching. Pandora is not competing in the same category anymore. It is hunting in a different weight class entirely. Here is why it takes the throne. The Doctor's Pro gives you a perfect par chassis, but it tops out nowhere near Pandora's ceiling. The Red Panda gives you bench-grade stability, but at 16+ pounds it is not walking into the field with you. Pandora gives you the Red Panda's harmonic isolation through its dual-tube plenum, the Doctor's Pro's modularity through its swappable valve system, and then adds raw, field-ready power that neither rifle can touch. With an 840 cc total air capacity between the tube and auxiliary bottle, this is not just the most powerful air rifle on this list, it is the rifle that just rewrote what powerful even means for the entire category. This is the new 500 bar standard. Everything else on this list is still playing by the old rules. So there you have it. 5 platforms that prove 300 bar was never the finish line, it was just where the old guard decided to stop trying. The Skout EVO showed us that a rifle can think for itself. The RTI Mora Sniper proved that raw consistency beats flash every single time. The Karma Red Panda reminded everyone that sometimes the answer to recoil is just more weight. The FX DRS Pro MDT 700 erased the line between air rifle and centerfire rig entirely. And the Wolfiek Pandora PRS, well, that one did not just win this list. It rewrote what winning even means. Here's the deal. Whichever one of these rigs ends up in your safe, you are not buying a toy anymore. You are buying engineering that did not exist 5 years ago. If you want the raw truth without the marketing fluff, lock it in right here.